Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 21 of We're Not Dead Yet. I'm your host, Curt Schilling, co-host Brian Youse. What's up, B?
Not too much. Kind of tired. Short weekend. Busy at work.
Football, football, football.
And a lot of football. My goodness, a lot of football.
And the Eagles just
Thank.
lost, so Doc's going to be miserable.
Oh yeah. Well, the Eagles are fundamentally flawed in that they're most likely criminal.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I'm not a
So,
college football, so I didn't miss
no,
anything with the college stuff.
not a
I
big,
watched a little
not a
bit
big
of
college guy,
Indiana.
but I'm pulling for Indiana.
I mean, I'm pulling for them because they're 14-0, but everybody acted like the guys on ESPN were talking about how they had few penalties and stuff. From what I watched, their defensive backs commit interference practically every play. I mean, it's like, daggone, these guys are terrible. But maybe it was just the game. That quarterback looks sharp, though. I'll give him that.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's right now the
can't,
number one ranked draft prospect next year.
can't wait to see how Las Vegas ruins him.
Yeah.
So
Well, it won't be Pete Carroll doing it, so.
that's true.
All right, let's we got another interesting topic this week, but let's clear up some past business. Trivia from last week, which again, if you haven't watched it, you're a great GCACW fan. We had two wonderful guests on talking great campaigns in the American Civil War last week. Trivia.
All right, Joe Balkowski and Chris Withers both gave us a trivia question, and I was so greedy to use them that we did two trivia questions last week. We'll start off with the easy one. First of all, there was 24 total responses, which isn't bad. That's not as many as we've had with some ASL responses, but it's pretty good for a different game system for us. The question Chris asked was, what was the first game, who produced it, when was it produced, and what was the first scenario? Stonewall Jackson's Way, 1992, the Avalon Hill Game Company, and Cedar Mountain. There was all 24 people that wrote that in had the correct answer. And Harry Ryan was the winner of the easy trivia question. He wins a Winter Offensive bonus pack. Hopefully he's an ASL player. If not, you could probably sell it online for $10 or something. Who knows? $1.50 maybe. Then we had the difficult question asked by Joe Balkowski, and I really enjoyed Joe's question because it was kind of game related. What two leaders can command both cavalry and infantry? I'm paraphrasing that question. It might not be in the right terminology for GCACW because I don't play it. The correct answers were Nathan Bedford Forrest for the Confederacy and Philip Sheridan for the
Sheridan.
Sheridan. I always heard Sheridan. Is
Sheridan.
it Sheridan?
No, Sheridan.
That learn something new every day. Eric Brocious won that, the hard question. Eric, you're going to be on the comp list for the next GCACW game that comes out. I've been calling it the Valley game because it's going to have a reprint of Stonewall in the Valley, and it's going to have the new version Sheridan in the Valley. Sheridan in the Valley. So you'll get that when it comes down the pipe a little later this year. Great job on the trivia questions, guys. I really enjoyed reading through the answers. A couple of them were humorous. A couple of them were a mix-up of at least two or maybe three Civil War generals' names that I knew. I admire the spunk of just picking three names at random and thinking that's a Civil War general. That's awesome. This week's trivia question. You want to wait till we're done, or do you want to do it now?
It's up to you. We can hold off.
Let's hold off so it'll make a lot more
Yep.
sense once people see what we're talking about.
Yep.
Plus,
So
then they
this
have to
week's
watch.
topic is going to be something, and it's these are timely and relevant in the sense that we're Brian and I finding ourselves using some of these tactics in our current replay and playtesting of Kharkov in Flames by the great Andy Rogers, and I have done it more in this campaign game we're currently playing than the other campaign games combined, and I think it's a combination of Brian's Germans this turn plus the terrain of the map. But we're going to talk about routing, breaking and routing, but particularly self-breaking and routing. And then we're going to have a little another scenario at the end here which I find very, very interesting. But This first image you're going to see is a picture of the Kharkov map, southern area, or it's the eastern area, but the bottom edge of the map.
Well,
The yellow
time
circle
out.
are location victory points. The white
Time out.
circle are how many. Go ahead, B. Sorry.
Giving them the trivia question?
No, why?
Because what you're describing is the trivia question.
I didn't know what the trivia question was.
The trivia question is the illustration that we set up of this
Ah,
specific route example. Let's not
all
give
right.
the answer.
Okay. All right. So
Um,
the circled numbers are campaign game relevant information, which you'll learn once you both those factories are victory locations. But in this scenario, and the example here is self-breaking and routing thing is happening a lot for me as the Russians. Number one, because I do have some commissars on the map, but more importantly, Brian's assault in the Loswell factory and the very limited routing paths. If you don't self break, which is fine, obviously, sometimes you don't get to pick your route paths. And in this scenario, in this campaign game, with visibility inside the factories being what it is, you can destroy an entire force that breaks in a factory with a half squad in the wrong place. So I have been breaking and routing more than usual, and it's funny because Brian's played since ASL's inception, all the way back to squad leader. Play testing at the old Avalon Hill house and at Avalon Hill. And the rules that we forget sometimes, or the rules that we forget we forgot, are funny. It's one of those, how many movement points does a leader have again, or something stupid. And in this one, we ran into something that Brian, I know he knew the rule, he just forgot he knew the rule, and we've been playing so much. But basically, what you have here, this picture, you've got two German 468s in a factory, and a broken Russian 447. The Russian is self broke for he was CX and whatever, and he wants to get out of the way. Now Brian, you can talk about how you do it. I'll tell people how my initial route phase plan is to look at my broken units and I decide where they have to go. Right? Any route, any DM broken unit that has only one potential destination or can't get to a building, I'll route first. And then the ones with multiples, and I'm routing first, which is obviously. Which, by the way, Brian, I'm going to ask you this. I don't think players factor in the order of the route phase enough when they're looking at routing, right? I mean, if you're
right.
routing second, it's an enormous advantage because in many ways, or could be a disadvantage based on where you're at on the battlefield. But those units that you look at as potential routing units might not be able to route if you're routing second because of another unit that routes in their path, or the things that go like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you have to think about when you're routing. What order matters tremendously, like Kurt just said. I mean, because I could route guys to put them in positions where now you can't route. That's always fun to do that if you get to go first. I mean, there's a little benefit to going first. Another thing that possibly you can do is recognize that, these guys don't always all matter. And sometimes it's more important that a route guy blocks a path than it is survives. Little harsh, maybe. That's okay. It's a game. Sometimes you want to route people where they're just going to prevent somebody from getting their win. Gavin take, a scenario we talked about a couple weeks ago. The fix for the thing you should do as the Germans in Gavin take is entrench in the exit hex. Why? Because then you can be in the entrenchment broken and stop the Americans from exiting from that hex. It's an important tactic. It should be played that way. It doesn't guarantee a win by any stretch in that scenario. As the numbers show, the scenario is pretty balanced. Another thing you need to think about is, well, I know Curt right now in Kharkov and Flames has one stack that I think has an entire infantry
Company.
division in it.
Yeah.
There's
It's
got
a
to be at
company.
least a company. There's 8 squads, I think, in there. The
Yeah.
last guy tried to
Yep.
move in and didn't have enough movement factors to get in, period, even if it was the same.
And he was adjacent, I think.
Let me in, guys. I want to be in the party too. When you have a commissar in a building with 8 morale guys, I mean, everybody wants to rally at that party. So,
Yeah.
now the important thing there is if you're going to do that, you need to make sure you move first that your player turn's coming up, because you don't want to be 4 squads overstacked in a hex when I get to shoot at you first. I mean, that's
Right.
bad. But negative modifiers in this game are bad. They just are. 2 down 1 is way better than a 4 flat, because that down 1 gives you a chance of doing more damage you wouldn't expect to do. By the way, I just made that up because I don't have a chart
No,
in front of me.
a down 1 shot, Brian, I realize this. I believe a down 1 shot is always a potential KIA.
Yeah, that's true. And,
right?
Sometimes flat shots, they're not. I mean, the best you could do is hope to break somebody, and you play this little
They're
slappy game.
cowards. Right.
But a KIA is a KIA. And you got to think about those things when you route. Where are you going to go? Can I get there? Is it going to be overstacked, and am I going to put myself in a worse position by trying to help myself? You definitely want to think a little bit about your route phase. And I think a lot of times people just think, oh, I got one thing I can do, and that's run away as far as I can, as fast as I can.
Right.
It's just not the case, as we'll see in our trivia example.
Right.
Which hopefully Curt doesn't give away.
What we're looking at is 2 4 6 8s. And remember, factory line of sight is just a hindrance for hex, so everybody can see everybody. And the 447 has voluntarily broken. Now, this is kind of a unique thing in the sense, and we'll talk about the faux pas we ran into yesterday routing, because we had played a little wrong, and then I was sure I was right and couldn't find the sentence, as is often the case in the ASL rulebook. But the S30 447 has 3 potential route paths, and those are the destinations. And so as a routing player, that's what I'll do. I'll look at where I can go. I can go to T26, I can go to W29, or I can go to W30, because it's the closest in hexes or movement factors for routing, right? What is it? Hold on. Let's get specific.
Yeah, you want to make sure you're right. And you wanted to add W28 to that too, by the way.
Right.
As
right.
a possible
sorry,
part.
W.
Garrick, this is probably the place where you want to cut and splice together, because people don't read.
Nearest building or woods hex calculated in movement factors at the beginning of its route phase. So a routing unit must route to the nearest building or woods hex in movement factors. So you have we have our S30 to get to T26 would be he couldn't go to S29, so he'd have to go to T29. Then he'd have to go to T28 for 2. Now this is where Brian and I were at loggerheads, and one of the most definitive and important messages in the route rules is that you can ignore the building that you're currently in when you begin your route. That is, even if it forces you to cross open ground to get to your target, you can leave the building you can ignore it for route purposes. So T26, I go T29, T28 for 2, T27 for 4, T26 for 6. Once I move to T29, I'm 3 hexes away from the Q28 unit, but I never get closer moving along the TX row to T26. The other options are W28, T29 for 1, U29 for 3, B28 for 4, W28 for 6, W29 for 6, or I can go T29, U30 for 3, B29 for 4, W29 or W30 for 6. So I've got, and obviously, we didn't put any leaders or anything else here, but what's behind your front line clearly, I'm going to assume that probably the safest move would be into the W building, just because of the immediate DM that you put on me the next turn if I lose it in T26, which I will, even if I rally, or even if I don't rally. But this has happened again in the Lost Hole Factory because of being pinned or being almost surrounded in a certain sense, where I know he was going to advance into close combat, or I know I had a leader kind of surrounded in a sense, and routed him. But there's a strategy to this, and there are uses to this, and I think it's a tactic that's not used by a lot of younger players.
What is it? You're talking about self-breaking. Okay. For sure, in this case, which, by the way, was the trivia question, so now we'll come up with something on the fly. There's options here that the Russian player has, but clearly They need to keep this dude alive. They want to get away from the close combat that might come, although quite frankly, a 1-to-1 close combat I personally would not enter into because of my total poor luck in close combat. But a lot of people would jump on that right away. I think that there's many extenuating circumstances, but you can see, you could always just go to 29. You don't even have to low crawl. You just move there. But the rule that I've been whiffing on for some time now is that you could leave uh, the building to go to your target. And the key sentence is, that I was harping on was you can only leave a building or woods hex once entered to enter another building or woods hex. If you look at the electronic rule book, that's like the last sentence, I think, of the section in A. And the very first sentence of the next page
right,
is the exception that says, except if you're in the building, you can ignore it, blah, blah,
upon
blah.
reaching a building woods location not big adjacent to a known enemy unit, a routing unit must stop and in its route phase in that building woods location, even if overstacked, unless that unit can directly enter another building's woods location in its next hex entered, not necessarily the same building or through a continuous woods hex side. Exception: a broken unit in a building need not consider a hex of the same building in which it begins the route phase, or when a new destination is refigured, as its closest building hex if it prefers to route out of that building altogether and toward another building woods hex. Even if it must cross open ground or another building hex of the same building to do so.
So you could literally go through 4 hexes of this factory, 2 hexes of the factory, enter an open ground hex, then, jump across the street and jump into a building on the other side of the street.
Right.
Important to keep that in mind, obviously, if you're about force preservation. I was talking to Guy Cheney back when we first started playtesting the CGs for this, and there's little reason for the Germans to risk themselves in Kharkov in flames, in Red Barricades too. We all have that nightmare scenario story of playing Red Barricades and losing like an 838 and a leader to a 426 that was hip and concealed and jumped on you in close combat. If you're in a position where you think that something like that might happen, although against a hip guy, I don't know how you'd know, but forget I said that part. You can always break and rally these guys. I mean, with a -1, -2 leader, they rally really quick, which is kind of instrumental in the next point that I know Curt is anxious to point out. A sleazy thing you can do, and it takes the right situation, but it happens all the time in ASL, is self-braking and routing forward. Take it away, Curt.
In this picture, you're going to see a litany of units. So let's just assume for the first part of this example, the Japanese units on the map don't exist. On the right-hand side of the map, entering the map, you have 2 Japanese 447 squads and a 9-1 in 2 separate stacks. Let's assume that this is a Japanese assault and you need to get to your defenders quickly, right? And by the way, thank you to Dan Stanhagen for this tutorial. But basically, what you would do is if you look at the 2 units off map, they would both move on to the map in GG5 and GG6. So they'd go GG5, FF5, all the way up to Z4 on the road with road bonus and a leader. CX, and then they would advance. One would advance into Y5, the other would advance into Z5. And at the end of turn 1, that's where you would be. Now, if you take Dan's suggestion and in Z4, in Z4.
That's right. Z4 is the curved Orchard Road hack.
So you're in Z4. If you self-break those 2 squads, Japanese units per rule 1.131, they don't strike. Self-breaking Japanese squads reduces them to 2 half squads. So you would break them in Y5. You would route to X4, W5.
You'd break them in Z4, and you would route.
No. Right. No. All right, hold on. That's what I said. I messed that up. Right.
Let's try this again.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Road bone. Right. That's right. Right. They'd be in 9. They'd be in Y5. They would break in Y5. Self break. You'd have a 9-1 and 4 half squads. They would go to X4, W5, V5. The units in Z5 would self-break and go Y6, X6, W7. Now, the beauty of this is in the next rally phase, on the American rally phase, you will have 8 squads that will rally on a 10 or better. Japanese leaders are like commissars. No DM, so they're a 7. Their morale's raised by 1, which makes them an 8. They're in rally terrain, which makes them a 9, and the leadership modifier makes them a 10. Now, we just offhanded did it, and I rolled 8 rolls, and I lost a half squad. But I also had 7 rallied half squads. It's a gamble for sure.
It's a huge gamble, but not so much for the Japanese. I mean, because you're rolling 10 or less rally in this case, because they had a -1 leader. Another benefit is you got rid of that pesky CX, so you moved all that extra terrain, and you're not marked with a CX marker, which is very useful when you're trying to get into close combat, which the Japanese are often want to do.
And in V5, I'm sorry, I was going to say in V5 you still have the same amount of firepower.
Yeah, I guess you would for sure, because they're going to be 447s will be 237s. So yeah, you'd have the same firepower, a little less range. Doesn't matter in the jungle.
Right. But I also like the fact that you have potentially 4 different shots.
You have more shots for sure. The only thing and you also have, if there's a high sniper number, you also have more targets in the hex for the sniper.
Right.
I don't know why we talk about snipers every week on this show, but we do. But that's another. I mean, there's quite frankly quite a few benefits to this. How does that apply to Kharkov and Flames? Well, Kharkov and Flames, you get NKVD with their backside morale of 9, or SS with their backside morale of 9. The Germans have -1 leaders more than they have light machine guns, I think. So, you're rallying. The Germans have the disadvantage of not getting rid of the DM. The commissars with the NKVDs get rid of the DM, add +1 for the building and +1 for the being stacked with commissar. They're rallying on 11. They're either a broken half squad or rallied, and you can move them quite far that way.
And remember, when you fail to rally under a commissar, you don't casualty reduce. You step reduce unless you're a conscript half squad. So, and then for the Japanese, I believe the Japanese shoot them, right? I mean, the Japanese failing to rally under.
Fail a rally here, you ELR effectively, right? You go down to the next. If you're a first line, you go to a second line. But in this case, so this is what happens when we play, folks. Stuff that we've done a billion times.
Japanese leaders equivalent to a commissar for all rally and berserk purposes. So the same benefits and penalties. So you step reduce, and if you're a conscript, you go away.
The proof's in the pudding. Those towers are 3 hexes farther down the road, and if time is of the essence, it's a solid, valuable tactic. Make sure the defender doesn't have any hip units you might bump into. That'll ruin your day. And hope you don't roll high. But we all try to roll low anyways, right? So that's not going to matter. It's a solid
and also
move.
offers you potential different bonsai opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Although if you're going to bonsai, everybody has to, and with the leader. So
right, but it does give you more guys with a higher morale to take multiple morale checks, which then create more snipers or other opportunities. So I mean, it's what is that? Ripples in a pond.
It's definitely risky, but again, a lot less risky when the die roll for rallying is a 10 or 11, right? I mean that's. And that's why the Japanese with leaders are potentially units you can do that with. Routing forward, thought to be a sleazy tactic, is it's a game mechanic that the rules certainly could have prevented, and they don't. Obviously you're only routing forward because you can't see anybody. You need to factor that in when you're thinking about this grand tactic, and at the end of your self break, you look around the map, because listen, this is one of those things, if you're going to do it in a tournament, be sure of what you're doing, because this is not a move, in my opinion. Hey, I'm going to self break all these guys. Okay, they're going to they can't. Well, you know what? No, I'm not going to self break them. No, that doesn't, in face to face play, whatever, play test, whatever, but in a tournament, nah, I'm not that. Sorry, bud. They're broken.
You've got to. This applies in the right circumstance. It just happens to apply more often in the jungle, where you can't see anything.
Right.
Playing a
But for
scenario with
those of you guys that will play Kharkov, if you look at this
yeah,
factory, you're going to see this factory is almost half the map. And you need to control 22 of 33 as the Germans to take the victory points. And it's worth 10 points, so it's obviously a must have. But you can imagine if you're on one end of the factory and you have a half squad on the other end of the factory, you can completely destroy Russian units in between those units if they break and you have somebody adjacent or whatever. You need to think about that as you assault these factories because it's a huge piece of gameplay. And by the way, Brian, I really noticed this in this last campaign setup. Think about it for the next day. When this is a campaign game where you need to be very conscious of your finish line for a campaign scenario because the German firepower and the Russian firepower up close is nasty as well. But the Germans every leader is a -1, -2. And so the German, except for campaign game 3 when the Russians move first, the Germans are going to be opening up with a huge can of whoop ass on turn 1 prep fire and op fires. And those 24 dummies you get as a defender, you know what? They don't work against good players, and they especially don't work against good players who deploy. So Brian, I think you had a 30 stack that op fired, or 24 stack that op fired on turn 1,
yeah.
and I had put the two guys he could eventually potentially see were both real units because I knew you weren't, doesn't do me any good for you to bump. Wow, the 238 loses concealment because whatever, but I've done nothing because you just advance into the hex at the end of the turn.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem in the sense of it's a gameplay problem. But my problem with the Laswa factory and other factories on that map is as the Germans, if you're kind of attacking down, and you'll see this on the illustration we'll post, there's Russians over here that you can see.
Right.
You can't get too far below them, or now you're trapped behind. If this guy here is real, and these guys over here half a mile away are real, this guy can't route, and you
Right.
die. And the last thing you want to do is lose a 548 or a 548 assault engineer, which is like some of the best units in this game, to some cheesy line of sight like that. And if you're a good Red Barricades player, you know this because the same thing
Right.
kind of happens in Red Barricades, but these factory buildings are much more condensed than Red Barricades, in
Right.
my opinion.
Right.
And there just seems to be more opportunities where you really got to think to yourself, if I put this guy here and he breaks, he's going to die. Do I want to take that risk? And as
Well,
the
the
Germans,
factories in Red
and then
Barricades, for the most part, Brian, the factories in Red, you can object, but I think the factories in Red Barricades are their own little battlegrounds. The big ones, the Barricade and the Steelwork, they're
oh yeah,
they're their own battlegrounds, right? And there's some decent sized factories in this one, but they're all one hex away from each other. So you're looking at a 2 hex human wave if you can do that with with the Russians, but it's very different. Even though it looks the same, it plays, I think, very differently than Red Barricades. In that sense. And I think that's a good thing. I think Andy's done another amazing job creating a Hazel, and I'm really excited. I'm very excited about where the campaign game is right now. I think we've the groups have managed to get it to a place where it feels like the day 3 Russian assault is now no longer, well, hell, I'm just going to sit back and marshal my forces. It's now going to be, I need to take back some ground. And
yeah,
I think
I'm real
that
happy
is
with where
awesome.
it's at. I think it's been some of the most fun ASL that I've played in some time. And I don't know why. I mean, I can't put my finger on it, but I just have left this game over the last 2 weeks. We play a turn or sometimes 2 turns,
Yeah.
and then the next day we'll hook up for 30 minutes and play half a turn or whatever. It I'm keep wanting to come back to it and get
Right.
to the next turn. This is a
And
page
that
turner.
is the sign of a good design.
Yeah,
Because you and I have been play testing for 2 years now, and we play tested an enormous amount of content. And the campaign games don't feel this way all the time.
no.
Luckily, they don't. And the goal of, and there's the lovely misses. The goal of the design is to make it players want to play it again, I think.
Yeah.
And it's the beauty of this one is it is a weekend campaign game. You can knock it out in a weekend, it's face to face, and I'm going to argue that everybody will want to flip sides and play again because the
I
challenges are obvious.
absolutely think that'd be
Huh?
the case.
No. Oh, okay. The Golden Globes are going on, and all the people in Hollywood are wearing a "Be Good" button.
Is anybody else concerned with the fact that the Schilling family doesn't seem to have heating oil in their house as Shonda comes in a what was that? Is that a what are those called?
It is a 1945 Soviet full body burqa, or a full body mink coat from Stalingrad. Yeah, no, I'm out in my hobby room. My hobby room is off to the side of the dungeon. So, but yeah.
Chilly it
So,
is. Chilly it is.
all right, let's
But there you go. I mean, there's some
go
useful
ahead.
route tips, I hope. I have Kurt's going to be a little offended, I think, but I have a fun trivia question this week since I have to come up with one on the fly now. The trivia question this week is, how many times did I warn Kurt not to give away the trivia question, and he did it anyways? You want to mail that to podcast@mmpgamers.com. Garrick will put it up on the screen. I swear one day I will put a sticky note on my iPad or my iPod. Good Lord, how old am I?
Wow.
On my Mac, and
On your
we'll never do this
TRS-80?
again. Yeah,
Oh.
that's got my Timex Sinclair. Talking today, I had a good idea popped into my head, and I'm sure it's been talked about to death online, but we can do it again. There's so many podcasters in the world nowadays. We should have a podcast on sleaze moves and why they're not sleazy. Which will
that's a great topic for next week.
It will start with me going, it's a game, it's not sleazy. But
Well,
get
it'll
past
also
that.
be another opportunity for us to reinforce the fact that we changed the one everybody's going to mention, which is the vehicle bypass one, which is now officially changed
Yeah.
per the last annual. Yeah, that'll be our. Hey, that's a great topic for you guys to send in questions. Your least favorite sleaze tactic. Don't say skulking. All right, because skulking is absolutely 100% a valid military tactic and used by the greatest players alive.
And Kurt.
So, right.
Yeah, please just mail those to any suggestions of skulking tips or tactics or things you hate that you want us to discuss next week to the podcast at mmpgamers.com, and we'll go ahead and add those in. We had a few questions, and I could have swore I saved the screen with all the questions on them, but I seem to have misplaced it. So
I'll wait for you.
we'll get to that.
Go ahead.
You want to wait? All right,
Yeah.
let me.
By the way,
me
New England, LA, nothing.
Still?
Yep.
We had a few requests. I don't know why people are concerned, interested, care about what we think about who is going to be in and win the Super Bowl. I've given it a lot of thought, and I'm pretty sure Seattle's going to make it in. They look unbeatable right now. I think they should be able to beat whomever advances. And I think from the AFC side, I refuse to say Denver. I think Denver's smoke and mirrors at this point. The problem is New England hasn't played anybody tough all year. I mean, they have a great record because they play Miami twice, because they play the Jets twice. I mean, which is like 2 free wins anytime.
Oh God. Oh.
Sure wouldn't mind if the Steelers made it, but there's no way. They don't have the offense. So I'm at a bit of a loss. I think I'm going to have to say Houston, because their defense is every bit as good as Seattle's. And the problem I have there is their offense. But let's go with Houston versus Seattle. And Houston will win 17-14.
All right. I've got battle of MVPs. I've got the Rams and the Patriots with a 35-31-ish score, with the Rams beating the Patriots and Drake May and Matthew Stafford having monster games. So there you go.
Drake May looks for real. I'll give you that. I mean,
yep.
He threw what, 70% completion rate, but his average yard per completion or attempt is like 12 or 14 yards. It's huge.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
No,
All right, let me see. Here's some of the questions Garrick forwarded to us, people that had sent stuff in. He was talking about scenarios. Dave Garvin knows better. Good Lord. Dave said that In Sight of the Ruins, a Beyond Valor version. I don't know of a scenario called that, Dave. It's In Sight of the Volga, which is Germans and Russians.
And Among the Ruins.
about was among the ruins, which is the Americans and the Germans. So I don't know what you meant, Dave. We're not going to answer your question because I don't know what you meant. And next time I see you, I'm going to laugh at you. Next question. I play both ASL and GCACW. He had just pointed out that Hood Strikes North. This is Arthur Golwitzer, 364. His first module was GCAC for GCACW was Hood Strikes North. I think you picked the right one. Joe Balkowski and Chris have assured me that that is an intro module and you will get a kick out of it. Next question. Let me pull through these real quick. Some of them are more statements than questions.
Hey, how far
Maps are
down the
great.
road do you think Balkowski and Chris are on their intro to GCACW module?
It's been a week, so I would say 6 emails have changed hands and they're working on an outline.
Strong.
I'm just guessing. This one wants this person, Joe Wurzer 4366, says he would like a GCACW module about the defense of Washington. We had a line of battle game on that, Monocacy, which is near here. That's the only reason I can even know what the name is. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Very cool little battlefield to go to. If you ever drive to WBC, you can pop in and see it. They have the best map light table I've ever seen for describing a battle. But we don't have one necessarily for GCACW, although I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. Next question. We only have 2 or 3 more. It's somebody saying hi to Joe Balkowski. I'll have to forward that. And said that Eric Lee Smith, who designed a game that he worked on, has red hair. I don't know why that's important to our Q&A, but there you go. Are
There's a
Battle
ginger
Above
among us.
and Roads to Gettysburg 2 ever going to be reprinted? The answer to that is emphatically yes. Now that we print overseas, it makes reprinting that entire line and, quite frankly, a lot of other lines that we have totally feasible. It's not going to happen this year. We've got a bunch of ASL reprints to get out, and we have a bunch of new games to get out. And last year was not a great game for us, a great production thing because of the whole tariff situation and trying to re-engineer how we produce games. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we made that happen sooner rather than later because GCACW is quite popular. So emphatically, yes, it will happen. Probably won't be in 2026, maybe the beginning of 2027. Let me see here. Next question. The rules to GCACW are a bit of a bear to read through. Can they be simplified or better organized? They can. Everything can be better organized and simplified if you work hard enough at it. I hope that we can talk Joe and Chris into maybe addressing that a little bit and see if we can't get the core system rules to be a little more straightforward. I'm also going to
Let me just add a point to that, Brian. One of the major aspects of that is we don't operate in a silo. So yes, those things can be done. Everybody recognizes they should be done, but that means work not being done on something else. And that means work not being done on a new module, whatever. And that's the tit for tat. The ROI has to be worth it in a sense. It might be worth it for you, but not to the other people waiting for a new product. So those are the things we weigh when we talk about reprinting stuff.
That was the point I was going to make is we've had several people say you don't need an intro module because Hood Strikes North is an intro module, and really the game is only 24 pages of rules. So some people think it's fine, other people think they should be rewritten, and we get that, and it's stuff we talk about. A perfect example of that is Kawaguchi's Gamble, an area move game. Quite frankly, I think is a fantastic game. When you play it, and you work out the rules, which are a little problematic, it is possibly my favorite area move game with the exception of maybe Monty's Gamble. Now I'm offending everybody, so I'll say that I like Storm Over Jerusalem and Storm Over Dien too. But, there were some new concepts in Kawaguchi's Gamble, and the rules made it hard to play. And the game didn't do that well for us. I mean, we're still selling it. We have a few left. But if you like area move and you like tactical level games and it's quick and you can play it in an evening once you know what you're doing, it just requires a slug through. I've had 2 or 3 people
Here. I'm going to add another note here, guys. This is your conduit. I mean, I know it sounds simple and you may not think it does. We read everything. If there's a large contingent of people that want product X, we need to know. We don't, as much as Brian thinks he's Karnak, he's not. And we we listen, we pay attention, we recognize. I mean, it doesn't need to be 500 people, but if 30 people on 1 week of response to an episode respond with the same request, then we know that that's that's legitimately in the public mind. So we take those things into consideration.
For the record, if I were Karnak, uh, what is Talavera would be games that we should have never printed. But that's just me. It's an inside joke. I'm sure Talavera's fine. I just personally, have nothing to like about Napoleonic, so I don't really care one way or the other with them. That game has other issues because of FedEx, basically. Long story. I don't need to get into it. If you ever see me at a convention and want to buy me a beer, I will talk your ear off about why FedEx caused this issue. That's the list of questions. So there was only one real deep question in there. Are we going to reprint? And there you go. Now you know why. When and why. But yeah, GCACW certainly does well enough for us that is, barring some major thing happening, we will be reprinting that down the road for sure.
And we're inches deep on a mile deep crater of printing outside the continental United States. It could turn out to be a much more beneficial relationship than we anticipate. It could work way better than we ever thought. And don't hold us to dates. It's end of the year, early next year, probably could change. It might not. It might be later. But the fact of the matter is, and I've said this time and time again, we listen to you guys and we try to make the best decisions for the players, period. It's, the best decision we believe for you guys is to make our games cheaper. And that's why we ended up making this move. And if we can make our games cheaper, get more of them out to you faster and in perfect shape, then we'll do that. And if the printing overseas turns out to be a beneficial thing that we can do on a schedule we didn't foresee, you'll be the second people to know. So subscribe, guys. We're growing, and we appreciate everything you guys do for us. And as customers, we're here for you guys. Well, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Brian. And we'll catch you guys next week.
Take care, guys.